With the latest trailer for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, we are now confirmed to have over 180 plus characters for the base game that'll be coming out within October the 11th. However, there still are a couple of characters that are not included within Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, but they have been included within Budokai Tenkaichi 3. For instance, I know a lot of fans have been raging for Super 17 not being incorporated within the roster. We're going to be going over every single character that potentially could have been included within the Sparking Zero base game, and then focusing how some of these characters can more than likely be incorporated within DLC in the future. But hey, I'm not going to keep you guys here for too long. If you guys are hyped for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, make sure you guys do leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. And getting straight into the characters that have not been incorporated within Sparking Zero from BT3, I do want to make this very clear beforehand. I am not complaining about the 180 plus character roster for Sparking Zero. I think it's a fantastic roster. Do I wish there was maybe like one or two characters added more? Yes, but it's not that big of a deal. It is an amazing roster and I'm very happy with it. So in no way is this video going to be me complaining and whining about it. The first thing I will say though is that I am shocked at the lack of great apes that we did see within Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. If you guys do know, within Budokai Tenkaichi 3, every old school Saiyan that we did see had the ability to transform into a great ape. And when I say every Saiyan, I mean every Saiyan that was seen within a tale, even if it wasn't canon. We saw King Vegeta transform into King Great Ape Vegeta, or we saw Bardock transform into Great Ape Bardock, or Fasha transform into Great Ape Fasha. Same thing with Turles and Raditz and Nappa. Everybody that was a Saiyan with their own tail had their own Great Ape form, and that was very unique to Budokai Tenkaichi 3. However, they've completely scrapped that idea here within Dragon Ball Sparking Zero to the point where we only have one Great Ape, which isn't that big of a deal considering the fact that this Great Ape that is incorporated within the roster is the only canon Great Ape that we do see in the series, with the exception of Kid Goku turning into a Great Ape, which Kid Goku or Teen Goku is incorporated within the roster. So I am a little bit amazed that at the very least they did not add Kid Goku Great Ape, which was incorporated within the roster of Budokai Tenkaichi 3. But with all the characters that you do see here on screen right now, these are all characters that were incorporated within Budokai Tenkaichi 3, but they were not brought back for the Sparking Zero game. And that is some very noticeable characters that I personally thought should have been included, which is Super 17 and Pikkon. Although Pikkon isn't canon, neither is Super 17 or GT in its entirety. So, you know, because those things aren't canon, I don't necessarily think that's not an excuse to have them incorporated within the roster. But something else that I will say is that I am very amazed at the lack of OG Dragon Ball incorporated within the roster. The only character that we do have that is true to the OG Dragon Ball name is Teen Goku. We don't have any other character incorporated within Sparking Zero. I do know that there's different costume changes for characters like Master Roshi. Like Master Roshi can have a costume change into Jackie Chun, and the same thing with Yamcha having a costume change to his costume that he has within Dragon Ball, which is very, very cool feats to the game. However, there are some OG Dragon Ball characters that I personally think should have been incorporated within the game. And I'm not talking about every OG Dragon Ball character. I do believe a lot of those characters could have been avoided. Like, for example, I don't see any reason why we should incorporate characters like Nam or Kid Chi-Chi or characters like that. However, at the very least, if we're readapting characters from the original Budokai Tenkaichi 3 roster, I do believe we should at least have 3 to 4 of these characters within the Dragon Ball Sparking Zero roster from Budokai Tenkaichi 3. And those 4 characters would be Arale, Demon King Piccolo. At the very least, we should get a Demon King Piccolo, but Arale, Demon King Piccolo, Tao Pai Pai, and potentially Grandpa Gohan. Other characters like General Blue or Devilman or stuff like that, I do believe that those kinds of characters could be completely scrapped from the roster, considering the fact that we see them in maybe like 1 or 2 fights within the series. Not saying that they don't play an important role to the Dragon Ball storyline, because they obviously do, but you know, they aren't incorporated with as much fights as we do see with other Dragon Ball characters for me to necessarily include them, or to be so hung up on them not being added or incorporated within the roster. Something that I will say I am surprised about though is at the very least that they did not add Demon King Piccolo. Again, this could all just be incorporated within DLC in the future. OG Dragon Ball is canon though, compared to like a GT. I think a lot of fans did favor GT over OG Dragon Ball, so maybe that's why they went with that route instead. But OG Dragon Ball is canon, and I think that gives it every right to be focused on the Sparking Zero roster more than anything else. Again, not complaining, but I do think at the very least, if they gave us another OG Dragon Ball character, they should have given us Demon King Piccolo. Moving on from that, though, a lot of other characters that were not readapted into Sparking Zero were, you know, a lot of characters that were just a part of the original Dragon Ball Z movies. Like King Vegeta was incorporated within BT3. We also have Zenya, Fasha, you know, characters like that, but they were not coming back in Sparking Zero. And again, I am not complaining about that. I don't see any reason why we should see characters like Zenya or King Vegeta or Fasha or stuff like that, mainly because, you know, they really just don't play such a significant role to the Dragon Ball storyline for them to actually be incorporated within this roster. And not just that, we don't really even necessarily see them do that much within the game. They are really just random characters that were cool to add within Sparking Zero, but this does not mean Sparking Zero is not a Budokai Tenkaichi continuation just because it's missing some little aspected characters that they were not seemingly viewing to be too huge before they released the game. So I don't think we should complain about these characters specifically. Again, if you're also going to add a character like Zenya, then I don't understand what's your excuse for not adding the entire BoJack crew. I think if you're going to add Zenya, who was literally killed by BoJack within the movie, I think you should also incorporate the rest of BoJack's crew. But again, you know, I don't want people to be so hung up on characters that they are probably not even going to play anyways. Like, let's be honest, if Sparking Zero did release, how many of you guys would be maining characters like Zenya or a character like Demon King Piccolo or something like that, or a character like Fasha? Many of you, I would presume, would not be maining any of these characters. Something that I will say, though, is that I am very surprised that they did not add Supreme Kai. I'm not surprised that they did not add Kibito Kai. Kibito Kai isn't even seen fighting within the Dragon Ball Z series, so I'm not too surprised about that. However, I am surprised that they did not add Supreme Kai, especially considering that Supreme Kai's design itself is incorporated within one of the main menus for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. I believe it's the main menu for the World Martial Arts Tournament stage, or the Tenkaichi Budokai. So it's kind of weird to see that they didn't incorporate with him inside the roster, but, you know, they incorporated a Babidi, which, I don't know, it's really weird, but maybe they'll add him again in the future just for why not. Again, I don't know what kind of DLC Supreme Kai would be included in, but hey, I'm here for it. I do think Great Apes, though, that were specific Saiyan characters that did have Saiyan tails, I do believe that they should have added at least a section or a portion of that within Sparking Zero. I do believe that was just an incredible feat that was exclusive to a Budokai Tenkaichi game, and for that to be incorporated within Sparking Zero would really make it feel a lot more like a Budokai Tenkaichi game. Not to say that it doesn't already, but it would really bring back that nostalgia. Looking at the reference picture here, we also do have Garlic Jr. We do not have his pre-form. We do have his transformation, which is not that big of a deal. I don't think, you know, they're gonna go back and readapt the smaller version of Garlic Jr. for the roster. Something that I will say, though, is that I am impressed by the characters, or some of the characters that were not included within GT, especially considering that they are adding GT up for the base game. So I am surprised that they did not add East Shinron, Nova Shinron, and Super 17. I do believe those are characters that should have been incorporated within the roster. You know, I'm not complaining about it. I do believe that there could potentially be a GT DLC for characters that they have not added yet. And for that, I mean, they could add maybe an adult Goten, a Super 17, Nova Shinron, East Shinron. Characters like that, I think, would be very unique to the Sparking Zero roster, especially considering that a lot of fans have been craving for an adult Goten to be added within Sparking Zero, especially considering that we have really never seen him get any sense of shine within any Dragon Ball game. The last character that I do think should have been incorporated from the original BT3 roster should have been Pikkon. I'm not too sure why he was not included. You know, Pikkon had his own unique moveset. He was featured in a lot of non-canon battles, with the battles against Janemba, the battles that we've seen him with Goku doing the Super Kaioken in the Otherworld tournament. And it's really weird that we are getting an Otherworld tournament, but we're not going to be able to have access to Pikkon. I'm not too sure why we were not getting Pikkon. If we do get a DLC for Pikkon, again, I'm not too sure what it's going to be included with, but I do think Pikkon PyCon should have been included within Sparking Zero. Shifting away from that specifically, there are 4 more characters that I did want to address, and I think these are the most relevant characters that people have been referencing, and that would be Bardock Super Saiyan, Android 21, False Super Saiyan Goku, and then Bio Broly. Bio Broly, nobody cares about that. I think we can just dismiss that off rip. Android 21 was a character that was first introduced in the Fighter Z franchise, so I'm not too shocked at the fact that she was not incorporated within Sparking Zero. Again, I think it would be a fantastic DLC if they did add other characters that were featured in other or introduced in other specific games like Xenoverse or Fighter Z. So for example, they could release a DLC for Mira and Toa and Demigra and Android 21, all incorporated within one DLC. I think that would be a fantastic DLC to release in the future, especially considering that Xenoverse 2 or the Xenoverse game franchise is a very popular game. As for False Super Saiyan, I don't think False Super Saiyan had so much relevancy to the point where it should be included within the Sparking Zero roster. I don't see how it could potentially be added for DLC in the future, considering the fact that we already do have Lord Slug incorporated within the roster, him in his normal form and then in his giant form. So again, I wouldn't really hold my breath for False Super Saiyan too much. False Super Saiyan is really just an enraged form of Goku, and you know, I don't really think there is a need for that, especially considering this is just a pre-form before Super Saiyan. As for a Super Saiyan Bardock that we have seen before, you know, I don't necessarily think that he should be incorporated within the roster. This is something that is just completely non-canon, and it does bring a lot of confusion by it being its own continuity. So I don't necessarily think this should be introduced in the game, so much so to the fact that we are actually getting upset about it. I do personally, this is just my preference, I do personally wish we did get a grade 8 Bardock, because that is something that was very unique to Budokai Tenkaichi 3 over a Super Saiyan Bardock. That's just what I think. Or they could have given us both. I don't know. You know, I'm personally not too hung up on a Super Saiyan Bardock. The last 2 characters that I would reference though, and it's 2 characters that were actually incorporated within Raging Blast, which a lot of fans still dictate whether Raging Blast was a sequel to Budokai Tenkaichi 3 or not, but 2 characters that I would say would be cool to add eventually in the future would be a Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta and a Super Saiyan 3 Broly, just so we can have some fun with making some what if stories around those 2 characters, because the what if story where Vegeta turns Super Saiyan 3 and he fights Goku, Broly, and Gotenks is by far my favorite what if story within Raging Blast. But yeah, no, let me know what you guys think about all of this down in the comment section below. Let me know what characters that you wish were also incorporated within the Dragon Ball Sparking Zero base roster. Again, I am very, very shocked that we do not have a Super 17 or a PyCon. I think those are the 2 characters that I am most shocked about the most, but it's okay. We move on. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Ring that notification bell if you want to be updated with all types of Sparking Zero content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.